Nokia's story begins not in Silicon Valley, but in a Finnish forest. The company was founded in 1865 as a paper mill. Over the next century, it would merge with a cable maker and a rubber works to form a diverse conglomerate. In the 1960s and 70s, Nokia experimented in many fields: paper, tires, televisions, even nuclear power equipment, until it gradually focused on electronics and communications. By the late 1970s, Nokia was operating a telecom division, Mobira, and in 1981 launched the world's first car phone. These early steps set the stage for the mobile revolution to come. The real turning point came in 1992, when executive Jorma Ollila became CEO. Ollila slashed non-core businesses and made telecommunications Nokia's sole focus. Under his leadership, Nokia streamlined operations, unifying brands, and revamping its supply chain to meet exploding demand. From 1996 to 2001, Nokia's revenue rocketed from 6.5 billion euros to 31 billion euros. And by the late 1990s, it had become the world's largest mobile phone manufacturer. Nokia's global reach, economies of scale, and efficient logistics, inherited from its conglomerate past, gave it an edge. By 2000, Nokia controlled roughly half of the world's cell phone market, and in 2000, the company was briefly Europe's most valuable business. Nokia phones became a household name globally. During the 1990s and early 2000s, Nokia released a string of iconic handsets. The Nokia 3210 and 3310, launched in 2000, became famous for rock-solid durability and extremely long battery life. The simpler Nokia 1100, launched in 2003, would go on to become the best-selling mobile phone of all time, thanks to its low cost and reliability. Gamers remember the quirky Nokia N-Gage, launched in 2003, which combined a phone with a handheld game console, and partygoers loved the 360-degree rotating screen music phones. Nokia pioneered many firsts. It built the first commercial GSM phone, Nokia 1011, introduced early camera phones, and the Nokia 7650 was the first with a built-in camera, and even gave us Snake, the original mobile phone game. Every new feature, color screen, polyphonic ringtone, Bluetooth, etc., seemed to appear on a Nokia first. In short, Nokia became synonymous with the cell phone. For a time, a phone practically meant Nokia. By the mid-2000s, Nokia was at the peak of its power. The company had segmented its product lines: low-end Series 40 phones for basic calling, text, and high-end Symbian-based smartphones. Nokia invested heavily in R&D. The N-series and E-series phones pushed technology forward. For example, the Nokia N95 in early 2007 combined GPS, 3G data, Wi-Fi, and a Carl Zeiss 5-megapixel camera in one device. The camera-centric strategy was a winner. Companies scoffed at early phone cameras, but Nokia's gamble paid off. Devices like the Nokia N8, 2009, and later the 808 PureView, 2012, showed off cutting-edge imaging. The 808 even had a 41-megapixel sensor. Nokia even planned a Linux-based smartphone OS, MeeGo, with Intel, and released the well-regarded Nokia N9 in 2011, proving it could still innovate. Yet by 2007, the mobile landscape had begun to shift dramatically. Apple's iPhone, 2007, redefined what a smartphone could be: a large touchscreen device with a rich app ecosystem. Google's Android followed in 2008, and other hardware makers, Samsung, HTC, etc., embraced Android enthusiastically. Meanwhile, Nokia stuck largely with its Symbian platform, open-sourced in 2008, and an increasingly fragmented strategy. Nokia did release the 5800 Express Music in 2008 as its first big touchscreen phone, but it essentially grafted a touch interface onto the old Symbian S60 system, a move later viewed as a mistake. Symbian itself, once ubiquitous, began losing ground. Nokia's smartphone share fell from about 62% in 2007 to under 41% in 2008 as BlackBerry, iOS, and Android ate into the market. By 2010, market share data showed Symbian at 32%, while Android was 30%. In short, Nokia still had technological talent, but its software and user experience lagged behind the new leaders. Leadership changes reflected Nokia's growing crisis. In September 2010, Nokia replaced CEO Olli-Pekka Kallasvuo with Stephen Elop, a Canadian executive from Microsoft. Kallasvuo had come under fire for failing to counter the iPhone and Android threat. Elop, the first non-Finnish CEO in Nokia's history, was seen as a fresh face with experience in software and enterprise markets. Almost immediately, Elop assessed that Nokia was on a burning platform. In a now famous internal memo, early 2011, he warned employees that standing still would mean being consumed by burning flames, and that Nokia must plunge into freezing water by taking big risks. In plain terms, Nokia urgently needed to change course or face disaster. That change of course was dramatic. In February 2011, Nokia announced a partnership with Microsoft. Nokia would abandon its long-running plans for MeeGo and other platforms and use Windows Phone as the operating system for new smartphones. This was a major gamble. Windows Phone was a distant third in global usage and was particularly weak in app selection. Nokia executives hoped the partnership would give them fresh software support and access to Microsoft's resources, but it also meant giving up control over the core platform. Elop integrated Nokia's Maps services into Microsoft's Bing and prepared Nokia engineers to build Lumia phones, named for their glowing colored bodies. In October 2011, Nokia unveiled its first Windows Phone models, the Nokia Lumia 80710. These devices showed that Nokia could still make gorgeous hardware, but the transition was painful. Analysts noted Nokia's Lumia launch coincided with a sharp drop in its stock price. More ominously, Nokia's smartphone sales, formerly #1 worldwide, began to plummet. Consumers were slow to move from old Symbian handsets to Windows Phone. One by one, major OEM partners had already jumped ship to Android. For instance, Sony Ericsson fully abandoned Symbian. As 2012 progressed, Nokia reported only modest Lumia sales, a few million per quarter, while Apple and Samsung sold tens of millions. In North America, in the second quarter of 2012, Nokia managed just 600,000 combined Symbian and Windows phones versus 26 million iPhones and 105 million Android devices. By late 2012, Nokia had fallen from the world's largest smartphone maker to roughly 10th place. Behind the scenes, Nokia cut costs aggressively. Through 2012, it announced tens of thousands of job cuts and factory closures as part of restructuring. Investors lost confidence. Nokia's credit rating was downgraded to junk. Even Nokia's own chairman admitted that Elop made mistakes and couldn't turn the tide. Finally, in September 2013, Nokia took a dramatic step. It sold its phone business to Microsoft. Microsoft agreed to buy substantially all of Nokia's devices and services division, the Lumia and feature phone unit, for €5.44 billion. Nokia's smartphone era effectively ended. Elop departed Nokia's board and took a role at Microsoft to oversee devices. In a symbolic moment, Finnish interim CEO Risto Siilasmaa shook hands with Microsoft's Steve Ballmer as the deal closed. After this sell-off, the Nokia brand lived on in a new way. The old Nokia Corporation, freed of its handset burden, focused on telecom infrastructure, 4G/5G networks, and licensing patents. Today, Nokia still has tens of thousands of employees and generates billions in revenue, but it is mostly invisible to consumers. Nokia's former phone group was briefly reborn as Microsoft Mobile, and later the Nokia name returned to handsets via HMD Global, a licensed smartphone maker that started selling Android Nokia phones in 2017. However, the Nokia of handsets, the maker of 3310s and N95s, never reclaimed its old glory. In 2023, Nokia's priorities are very different. It builds 5G equipment and licenses tech. The era of "there's a Nokia phone" is over. What lessons can we draw from Nokia's rise and fall? For one, success in tech can breed complacency. Nokia had world-leading innovation in the 1990s and 2000s, but it became overly attached to its own legacy. As one analyst put it, Nokia became calcified by its own DNA. Even giants must remain hungry. Nokia's story shows the importance of software and ecosystem. By sticking with Symbian and late pivots, Nokia lost out to companies that built cohesive software platforms, iOS and Android, with vast app stores. It also illustrates the risk of betting the company on a single partnership. The Nokia-Microsoft pact was bold, but proved a misalignment of strategy and market momentum. In broader terms, the Nokia saga teaches modern companies that innovation is continuous. Industry leaders should invest in R&D and experiment, as Nokia famously did with camera phones, mobile internet, etc. But they must also be willing to make hard choices. Diversifying products was Nokia's early strength, but in mobile, it needed a more focused vision. It tried having multiple operating systems, Symbian, MeeGo, then Windows Phone, which diluted resources. Finally, leadership matters. The CEO and board must sense change quickly. Olila recognized mobile's potential in 1992, but later Nokia executives underestimated the smartphone shift.